day-to-day practice. And before that, in the first few slides, I'll be just briefing you about the new classification, about how the classification has changed from 2016 to 2021, the WHO brain tumor classification, which is now more on genetics rather than on radiology, and there's a mix of genetics and radiology. Molecular imaging is the call now. So yeah, basics and classifications. So the primary glioma classification, usually in 2016, there was a greater dependence on molecular and genetic typing over histological features. And in 2021, there are various further refinements. Okay. So in 2021, the finer refinements are there, which we are going to see how there was a division earlier. Like in today's classification also, the division was made on the basis of IDH testing, whether it is IDH mutant or it is IDH wild type. And in IDH mutant, there is again division in 1p19q co-deletion and 1p19q intactness. In 1p19q co-deletion, we get oligodendrogliomas, and in intactness, we get astrocytomas. Whereas the wild type of IDH usually deals with the grade 4 glioblastomas or IDH wild type astrocytomas. Okay, so this is the basic molecular division which we have done. Okay. Then again, there are certain terms which have been changed. So earlier we used to use glioblastoma multiforme. So we are stuck with GBM, GBM, GBM. So now that multiforme term has been deleted in the 2021 classification, and we have brought this distinct entity of gliosarcoma. There's a distinct lesion combining which is combining the neoplastic glial cells together with spindle cell sarcomatous elements, and the imaging appearance is like of a glioblastoma with dural involvement. Okay. Then we have oligoastrocytoma. In oligoastrocytoma, we have deprecated term for histological variant containing features of both. You have oligodendroglioma also, and you have astrocytoma also. So if it is 1p19q co-deleted, as I showed you in the prior chart, it is oligodendroglioma. And if it is 1p19q intact, then we have astrocytoma. Then another entity which we come across is gliomatosis cerebri. It used to be its own entity, but now it's a descriptive term. Okay, so it's an infiltrative lesion which is involving the white matter in 3 or more lobes. Okay, so that's gliomatosis cerebri now. It's now used as a more descriptive entity. Again, what are the key pearls which we encounter while we are dealing with primary gliomas? How are we reporting it as LGG or HGG? It depends on the mass effect, the hemorrhage, or the more enhancement pattern of the tumor, and the new nomenclature which grades it as. Not all grade 4 astrocytomas are glioblastomas. Whatever tumor which is looking like a grade 4, a higher grade tumor, sometimes on histopathology turns out to be grade 2, grade 1. So tumors are very surprising when we are dealing them. So it is very, very important to do a neurosurgical biopsy, send it to the neuropathologist, and then taking the review back, like what is it, whether it was a low grade or a high grade tumor. And sometimes the low grade tumor, you are giving it as low grade, and within 1 or 2 months, the tumor turns into a high grade tumor. So such is the aggressiveness or the fulminant nature of the tumor which you are undergoing while reporting. Some grade 2, 3 tumors behave like glioblastomas. So that is what I'm saying. So the molecular basis, the molecular genetics is the talk of the town and the hour. So the neuroradiologist should have a good hand with neuropathologist also. And you should have an interdisciplinary meetings when you are reporting gliomas or brain tumors. Okay. So this was taken from Radiographics 2021 major changes, which Radiographics told, the RSNA article which told us that there was a hyperintense mass in the left temporal lobe. There was no post-contrast enhancement. And you can see in the MR perfusion also, there's a relatively lower cerebral blood volume. And this turned out to be IDH wild-type glioblastoma. Okay, and these were imaging features which are suggestive of low grade glioma. Okay, so you cannot tell what is it on the basis of reporting. You can just retrogradely have a case collection that we gave it as LGG, and then on future subsequent neuropathology, it turned out to be this. And then you can collect those cases and form a collection of yours for your own learning, for publication, or for anything, so that you have a good understanding between the radiology and the pathological part of what you are dealing with. Okay. So these are the major changes, very vast, but I have put this slide because in DNB exams, in MD exams, you are asked about the WHO 2021 classification. Even the neurosurgery people, the neuropathology people are asked this classification. So this is very important. This is very busy slide, very cumbersome. So we are not taking it line by line. It is just for you people to take a screenshot of how we have replaced things on the basis of molecular, on the basis of genetics. Okay. So this is just a busy slide, not to worry about this slide, I'm not explaining it. Okay, then after seeing the classification of how we are dealing with a WHO 2021 brain tumor classification, the basic of brain tumor is how to analyze a potential brain tumor when you are dealing with an MR brain or a CT brain. Okay, so the basic thing the examiner asks you, and it is the very primer question, the first question of anybody. Acha, tell what is the tumor location, whether it is intraxial or whether it is extraxial. But before that, you need to tell the age of the patient. The age of the patient is very important when it comes to radiology in any of the subspecialty of radiology, whether you're dealing with abdomen, whether you're dealing with MSK, anything. Okay, so age is very, very important, whether you're dealing with a pediatric age group or you're dealing with adult age group, because then you have several questions and approaches to how to identify them. Okay, then you have to localize the tumor, whether it is intra or extraaxial, which compartment the tumor is lying. So that is my talk now. I have divided my talk into the compartmentalization of the tumors where they are lining, and then whether it's crossing the midline, what is its characteristic on CT and MR, what is the contrast enhancement, what is the effect on the underlying structures. So that is how you differentiate between a low grade and a high grade tumor, whether the tumor is associated with calcification, hemorrhage, whether the tumor is solitary or multiple, because multiple tumors, M for multiple, M for metastasis. Most of the time you think like that in an elderly patient. Okay, and whether it is a tumor or a tumor simulate. So this is the talk which I am going to deliver in the next 40-45 minutes. Okay, so a basic thing, just a basic slide also. Again, what are glial tumors? We have astrocytoma, oligodendroglioma, and the non-glial tumors are these. So this is because of the glial nature of the tumor, you get certain markers on neuropathology. So that is very important. And glial cells are nothing else but the supportive framework, the nourishment framework of our brain. And the non-glial cells usually are the meninges, the Schwann cells, the extra axial pituitary, the pineal, and the lymphoma. So it is very important to tell your clinician or to the neurosurgeon whether it is astrocytoma, whether it's a glioma or a lymphoma. Mostly they ask you because how aggressive the nature of the tumor, it depends on the imaging. Okay, and how they are treating it, it also depends on what you are telling to the neurosurgeon. Okay, so this is just a basic slide. You can take a picture of this slide so as to just have a basic overview of glial and non-glial cells. Then coming on to my first subset, very, very important for the exam. So it's a mixed bag. So first subset, everybody knows, posterior cranial fossa tumor. You get a long question on this. You get various flowcharts questions on this. So let's begin with the discussion. So this is a patient A and a patient B. Now you have to tell me, you can put in chat boxes or I'll tell you, and later on we'll have a discussion. So whether this patient A is a tumor or this patient B is a tumor. Like this is a tumor simulate or this is a tumor simulate. So A and B, what are those? So coming on to A, I know you must be writing in your chat boxes. So this patient A, you should first recognize the sequences. This is very important. So you should first recognize what are these things. So this in case A, what happens, this is your T2 weighted image, This is your flare image. Uh, okay, you people are writing A is epidermoid cyst. Okay, bleed. Okay. So we'll see it. We'll have a discussion and then later on we'll see the chats. Okay. So yeah, in A, this is yeah very well said. This is an epidermoid cyst because this is a T2 weighted image. This is a flare image. This is a DWI image and this is an ADC image. Okay. So on T2 weighted image, you are seeing some hyper intensity in the posterior cranial fossa near the fourth ventricle, which on DWI image, uh, which on DWI image is hyper, and on ADC it is hypo, and on flare it is suppressing. So the catch is here. It is hyper on DWI, showing hypo intensity on ADC. Okay, and T2 hyper and suppression on flare. So yes, this is an epidermoid cyst of the posterior cranial fossa. But in patient B, I am sorry, I just have put two images for you people. This is just an axial T2 and this is a sagittal T2 for you people. You are seeing something expanding the posterior cranial fossa, filling the fourth ventricle. It is solid cystic and you have cystic component, and it is not going into the foramen of Lashka. It is at the Magendie. Yes, it is likely a medulloblastoma, and this turned out to be somewhere group 3 medulloblastoma on histopathology. Okay, so we'll be discussing the 4 molecular subtypes of medulloblastoma also. So the patient A was epidermoid cyst and the patient B was medulloblastoma, likely group 3, which it turned out to be. Okay, so this slide was only to tell you the tumor and the tumor mimic. Okay, so this is a thing. Coming on to my next slide, again, this is another case which I have to discuss. But before discussing the case, it is very important, those who are listening to me, it is very important, the PGs who are listening to me, the very first question which you get in your OSCE exam is identify the sequences. So that is why I have not labeled them. It is for you to identify. This is a class where I am telling to you people, you can put down in the chat boxes. But yeah, the sequences are very important. So this is a thing on A. Okay, so this was a T1 weighted this was a T1 weighted sequence. This is a T2 weighted sequence. This is a flare sequence. This is DWI. This is SWI, and this is post contrast. Okay, so this is a thing. So this case basically is a case of ependymoma, which I am going to tell you. Why ependymoma? Because you are seeing a heterogeneous nature of the lesion. You are seeing SWI blooming. You are seeing heterogeneous post-contrast enhancement. And there's an associated arachnoid cyst also. Maybe that is also getting infiltrated by the tumor. And because it is also enhancing. Okay, so this was a case of ependymoma, which is like infiltrating the foramen of Lashka. Okay, so this is a case of ependymoma. Next. So next case is again a similar case, but slightly different. Okay, so here you are visualizing a tumor over here in the posterior cranial fossa infiltrating the foramen of Lashka. On T2, it is slightly iso to hyper. On T1, it is iso to hypo. There is some blooming on SWI. There is mild restriction, you would say. Okay, not that much restriction. And on this filter image also, you are seeing that this is kind of hemorrhage. Okay, hemorrhage mixed with calcification, you can say. This although you are seeing that this is not like very much hyper on DWI, but surprisingly this didn't come out to be ependymoma, it came out to be WNT type of medulloblastoma. Okay, so this is a thing. So interchangeably you cannot put them. You should like put your primary diagnosis, whether it is medulloblastoma, and molecularly you can grade them, and then secondly you can put whether it is ependymoma. Okay, so this is a thing. So now in the subsequent slide I'll be telling you how are we classifying them into various molecular subtypes? Okay, so this WNT variety, you can see that this WNT variety usually can go up to the, this wing-like variety can go up to the foramen of Lashka, whereas your group 3 and this variety, group 3 SHH, these are somewhat in the midline. Your group 4 is also at the midline. Okay, so medulloblastoma is the most common CNS malignant tumor, and mostly it is epicentered in the cerebellum, followed by the vermis, and it grows, and some of them grows towards the fourth ventricle. There is leptomeningeal dissemination, so together with brain screening, you are doing a spine screening also for such cases. Okay, for posterior cranial fossa tumors, you make it a mandate to do a spine screening. So yeah, these are various forms of WNT SHH group 3 and group 4. There's a bit difficulty in identifying the group 3 group 4 tumors. It depends on whether what is the age of the tumor and how the tumor is behaving, but sometimes you can grade them. See, WNT happens in older children. Okay, its location is somewhat near the CP angle, whereas SHH, the location is somewhat in the cerebellar hemisphere. Okay, and group 3, group 4 are mostly in the midline. Okay, so metastasis is very frequent in this group 3 one. So you should remember that if you are getting drop metastasis, which you get in medulloblastoma, you can think that it can be group 3. You can put down in your report and then cross check after the neurosurgical biopsy comes to you that what it came out. So always develop this habit of getting follow-ups for the patients, either from the clinician or from the patient himself, like what you gave is either present in the report or something else is there in the report. Okay, so this is a thing. This is a basic table. You can go through this table, take a screenshot of how the various molecular subtypes of medulloblastoma are behaving, because you are asked in the exam. There is a separate OSCE question for this: what are the subtypes of medulloblastoma? So you should just name them, you should remember them. Okay, so, because these subtypes are important for the treatment, because the treatment depends on the subgroup and presence of metastasis. Okay, group 3, like we read, that it is mostly like frequently it metastasizes, and it also depends on the age. Children younger than 3 years are treated with chemotherapy and only approach to avoid the deleterious effects of craniospinal irradiations. You're not radiotherapically treating them, you're giving them chemotherapy. And high risk patients, you receive high dose of radiation. Okay, so these are the treatment panels which you are using once you are subtyping them. Okay, so that is why things are important. So whatever we are giving in the report is very important. So you don't think that whatever you are giving in the report is just like that. It is very important. Okay, so I discussed ependymoma. So ependymoma can be infratentorial and supratentorial. Okay, so the supratentorial, these are some of the images I took when I was working in CMC. Okay, so supratentorial ependymoma are basically divided upon the mutation type. They are divided into RELA and YAPI. Okay, so RELA happens in older children, whereas YAP1 or YAPI happens in less than 3 years of age. Okay, so you can see here. Okay, so your RELA is, both of them are supratentorial, but your RELA happens in older children, or your YAP1 happens in less than 3 years. And this is because of the RELA fusion, chromosome 11 aberration, and this is because of the YAP1 fusion. Then you are getting this supratentorial cystic lesion with a solid component which is occupying the CP angle over here. Again, your YAPI is also somewhat homogeneous. You are getting with heterogeneous enhancement. Whereas in the infratentorial, you are getting heterogeneous contrast enhancement with calcifications, and these are also divided into type A and type B. Okay, so the type A1 is usually occupying the lateral recess, whereas the type B1 is in the midline. Okay, so this is a thing. So medulloblastoma, ependymoma, and 2-3 more posterior cranial fossa tumors are very important. So I will go through it because I have a lot to teach you people. So I'll be a little quick. Okay, so this I am just showing you the cases so that it goes on in your mind. If you wish to like put them in the chat box, you put it. We can discuss your doubts in the later part of the session. Okay, so this was a 9-month-old child with utosic delivery at 30 gestational week, and according to the parents, he developed ataxia and hypotonia. You can see 9-month-old child and a 19-month-old child with a 1 month history of claudication. And the neurological examination verified that the left ankle clonus and left Babinski sign was positive. I know everybody must be writing, everybody knows this. Yes, this is ATRT. Okay, so 9-month-old child. You are putting it as yes, everybody's putting good answers. So, yeah, this is ATRT. We are dealing with ATRT. So, atypical teratoid rhabdoid tumor usually happens in less than 1 or less than 2 years of age, where the child is very like having a lot of symptoms and a child is not in a good shape. So, there's heterogeneous enhancement. It commonly contains cysts and hemorrhages. There's leptomeningeal enhancement is also very common. The tumor is restricting. You can have imaging differential of medulloblastomas, but ATRTs are generally more heterogeneous than the medulloblastoma, but medulloblastoma is more common. If you are getting patients less than 9 months, less than 1 year, and you're getting an aggressive looking tumor, put a differential of ATRT, okay? Because there are surprising areas in TMH also. We are getting a lot of ATRT cases in TMH Mumbai. I've seen it in various webinars. Okay, so ATRT to be put in the differential. Then again, this also another posterior cranial fossa tumor. I'm giving much time to posterior cranial fossa tumor because everybody listening to me, this is very important. Okay, cystic lesion, T2 weighted images. You're getting cystic lesions with a solid component which is enhancing. Everybody knows what is it. Everybody knows, yeah, this is pilocytic astrocytoma. This was my department's case of pilocytic astrocytoma. Yeah, cerebellar pilocytic astrocytoma, most common cause of cystic lesion with a mural nodule in children. Okay, most common brain tumor in children occupies the cerebellum, then the third ventricle, and then the brainstem. It is a circumscribed cystic mass with a mural nodule. Okay, and it is slowly growing, and it also shows leptomeningeal seeding. Okay, so posterior cranial fossa, like I already told you, it should go hand in hand with a spine screening. Okay, so I have another slide. Keep this in your mind. Cystic lesion with a mural nodule. This was a very good webinar on YouTube from where I took these images. So cystic lesion with a mural nodule, the differential goes like pilocytic astrocytoma during childhood, gangliogliomas, glioblastoma multiforme, pleomorphic xanthoastrocytoma. These are all LEATs. Pleomorphic xanthoastrocytoma is an LEAT. Long-term epilepsy associated tumor. Ganglioglioma is an LEAT. Okay, so GBM we have already discussed, but multiforme we are not using now. Okay, so cystic lesion with a mural nodule. Another example is of hemangioblastoma in adults. These are all my notes, how I used to prepare during my PG by putting illustrations, putting them down in my notes. So yeah, VHL associated with hemangioblastomas, cystic lesion with a mural nodule in adult in the brain and spinal cord. Such frankly enhancing cystic lesion in adults you're getting associated with VHL, where you're getting manifestations in kidneys, where you're getting manifestation in brain, and associated head and neck tumors like endolymphatic sac tumors. Okay, enhancing pituitary stalk, clubbing them all together, you can put a diagnosis of VHL. Okay, so posterior cranial fossa, I am done with posterior cranial fossa as a first subset of my talk. We discussed medullo, we discussed ependymoma, we discussed ATRT, we discussed pilocytic astrocytoma, we discussed hemangioblastomas. Okay, so it is very important how you are dealing with this. Is just a quick recap of whatever I told, and then the tumor simulators can be epidermoid, dermoid, or metastasis. Okay, so this is all about my first subset. Coming on to the second subset, which is very important. These are cellular and supracellular masses. So cellular and supracellular masses, everybody has seen the radiology assistant article in their PG, or if not, please go through this article, taken from that article only, how you are identifying the lesion, whether arising from the pituitary, whether arising apart from pituitary. Okay, so this is very important, and this cellular anatomy has been put because if you're aspiring for FRCR, you are asked in the recent FRCR, they asked this structure, which was fornix. They gave them this fornix, okay, and they asked this structure. So this was cellular anatomy is very important for you people, and how you are determining the epicenter, then analyzing the lesion and grading it as differentials. Okay, So this is all taken from that radiology assistant articles. These are all the tumors arising from different anatomical locations which you are seeing, and common tumors we are about to discuss. Okay. First case, very easy. These are various cases. This part is one case, this part is another case. Okay, so here figure of 8 appearance, no man appearance. Everybody knows this is pituitary macroadenoma. The pituitary is not visualized separately from the lesion, and these lines are drawn to classify it under the NOSP classification. Okay, and this again another film taken picture. You are seeing fluid level here. You're seeing a fluid level over here. This T1 hyper intensity is there, this T2 hypo intensity is there, and yes, we are dealing with pituitary apoplexy in a macroadenoma over here. Okay, so very easy, everybody identifies it, and you can get it in exam also. Okay, so pituitary macroadenoma and pituitary macroadenoma with apoplexy. So these are the things. No man appearance taken from various illustrations from Instagram. Okay, so this is the NOSP and the Hardy classification which you need to give in your exam also, and in your reporting also, so that your neurosurgeon also knows, because the neurosurgeon are dealing with these two classifications. Okay, so this is a thing. Yeah, everybody is answering correctly. Okay, so very nice. I think my talk will be useful by the end. Again, next case, everybody knows that if macroadenoma is a discussion, then microadenoma is also a discussion. So you are doing a dynamic contrast enhanced pituitary scans in various phases, where here you know it is an eccentrically placed tumor, and eccentrically you have prolactin as a hormone secretion area. So you get prolactin over here. In the center, you get GH and TSH. Okay, so this is a prolactinoma, likely a prolactinoma. You can put down in the report that it is eccentric, differentially enhancing lesion in the pituitary gland. And yes, it can be a prolactinoma because the secretion of prolactin is eccentric, GH is eccentric, and TSH and ECTH is in the center. Okay, so this can be a hypoenhancing T1 isointense pituitary lesion, and pituitary microadenoma can have differentials of various cystic lesions of the pituitary or pituitary hyperplasia as focal pituitary hyperplasia as well. So pituitary microadenoma, basically most are prolactinomas, and these are eccentrically placed tumors. Okay, again, this is one case, this is another case. Case A, case B. Case A is a cystic lesion with a tiny nodule over here, a large cystic lesion. Everybody knows, okay, the pituitary is visualized separately. So everybody knows, yes, this is RCC, Rathke's cleft cyst. And this is another young patient, suprasellar cystic lesion with peripheral calcification. Here it is quite aggressive with enhancement. This is cystic lesion with a solid component over here. And yes, this is craniopharyngioma. So Rathke's cleft cyst and craniopharyngioma asked in exams. Also the rule of 90 is there for craniopharyngiomas, and the types of craniopharyngiomas are asked in the exam. Like the types are adamantinomatous, I'm sorry for the pronunciation, and papillary. Okay, so adamantinomatous you get in young, whereas papillary you get in older, and also depends whether it is more cystic or more solid. So Osborne is your gospel, your Bible. These are excerpts from Osborne. The tables of Osborne are very important if you're dealing with neuroradiology. Okay, so this is what craniopharyngioma is discussed in Osborne, and this is what Rathke's cleft cyst is discussed in Osborne. Just putting these excerpts to complete the slide and the explanation. Everything already I have told, just reiterating. Okay, so next, these are just illustrations of meningioma, which you're getting over here. Okay, then you get germinoma like this. This is a solid lesion with intense enhancement. Then sometimes you get a clival chordoma, which infiltrates the suprasellar cystic lesion and the prepontine space. These two lesions are very important because sometimes you happen to like misdo the diagnosis. If it is T2 bright like this, T2 bright lesion, okay, and then it is differentially enhancing later on, it is enhancing like a bright bulb, then this is hemangioma. But if it is showing flow void, okay, it is showing, it is respecting a vessel, the signal intensity like that of a vessel, then it can be a partially thrombosed, a ruptured ICA cavernous part aneurysm. Okay, so you should very importantly see the T2 brightness for regarding it as hemangioma. These were all my departmental cases when I was in KGMU. Okay, so this is a thing. And next, pituitary cases are incomplete without discussing these two areas: hypothalamic chiasmatic glioma, which is associated with neurofibromatosis type 1, and hypothalamic hamartoma in the region of tuber cinerum. And the clinical feature which you're asked is the patient has gelastic seizures. So, this is the word. And the anatomical location is the tuber cinerum. Okay. So, hypothalamic hematoma. Then finished with cellular supracellular masses, we have discussed most importantly the commonly asked masses as cases for exams and as we encounter in our day-to-day practice. Just a quick recap. You can take the pictures, you can take the slides. Just a quick recap can be taken from any of the books. Okay. Then CNS lymphoma and mimics. The third subset, CNS lymphoma, like I told, high-grade gliomas and lymphomas to be discussed very precisely to the neurosurgeon. Yeah. So this another case already told you that this is lymphoma. Yes, you are seeing T2 hypointense area. Usually the lymphomas occupy the corpus callosum or the paramidline areas. As you can see here, it is also occupying the midline parasagittal areas, appearing as cellular as DWI is high over here with hypo on ADC. And see the perfusion. The perfusion is so frank, all red, all brightly enhancing over here, brightly enhancing over here. So yes, it turned out to be primary CNS lymphoma, both the cases. Okay, this was my department's case, and this was taken from one of the articles. Okay. So yeah, primary CNS lymphoma has a mimicker like that of a toxoplasma. I have a toxoplasma case also. So the toxoplasma basically lies in the basal ganglia thalamus region. It has ring enhancement. It has eccentric alternate dark and light bands giving you the eccentric target sign as it's written over here. And toxoplasma, you can have a history of immunocompromised status. Okay. So in lymphoma also you can get a history of immunocompromised status, but there's marked restriction and strong homogeneous enhancement, but there's no restriction in cases of toxoplasma. Okay, so this is a thing. Then again, this is just a quick recap of what is there in CNS lymphomas and how CNS lymphomas have mimickers of HGG, metastasis, tumefactive demyelination. We'll be discussing all of these in my slides. So there's no point reading this busy slide. I'll be explaining it, so no worries. Okay, so another subset, high-grade glioma. Okay, so high-grade glioma, everybody knows if it is having hemorrhage, if it is having mass effect, if it is showing marked restriction, then we can think it of, and good perfusion, we can think it of as high-grade glioma. So this everybody knows, butterfly glioma crossing the midline. Here we have done MRS. On the MRS, you are seeing such a decreased NAA peak and a markedly increased choline creatinine peak. Over here also markedly increased choline creatinine peak. We gave it as high-grade glioma, both the cases, and it also turned out to be high-grade glioma. Here you can see the mass effect over here. You can see perilesional white matter changes. You're not putting it as perilesional edema in your reports because this is not edema. This can also be perilesional infiltration, which you are like precisely writing down in your report after doing MRS over here. If the MRS is also showing choline creatinine peak in this white matter change wala area, then you will regard it as infiltration, and then your surgeon has to increase the boundary for excision. Okay, so this is a thing, a case of high grade glioma for you people. Okay, so another quick recap of high-grade gliomas and its mimics. So these are a long list, but as I told you, the molecular thing you're only getting after neurosurgical biopsy. Okay, so you can only put it in your report as low grade or a high grade, but all low grades are not low grades and all high grades are not high grades. It's only after the biopsy and the final results after the IHC you can term what is it, and then the treatment is decided. Okay. Another important subset. See, I am rushing a bit because I have a lot of cases for you people. So, yeah, I have some 15, 17 minutes more. So, I will do all the cases. I'll just show you people, discuss. Then you can put your like questions to me in my email or in the chat boxes. CP angle masses. So CP angle masses, very easy. Everybody has seen these masses, vestibular schwannomas associated with NF2. This is NF2, NF2, NF2. This NF2 is of Miss Me. This was when I was in CMC for a short while. I got this case. I reported it as Miss Me syndrome. So you're getting various neurofibromas, you're getting ependymomas, you're getting vestibular schwannomas like this. So this was a Miss Me syndrome case. We got a case in CMC also and a case in KGMU also. Again, AAAA, this again is a case. I gave it as to identify the sequences and then putting the diagnosis. So one epidermoid we saw in posterior cranial fossa, the other epidermoid we are seeing in CP angle. So two epidermoids are there. The A is also epidermoid and the B is also epidermoid. Okay, this was a Fiesta sequence. Why? Because here the patient was having some facial nerve problem and also a problem of hearing, because it is in close proximity to the 7th and 8th cranial nerve over here. That is why a Fiesta sequence was done at our end and it turned out to be epidermoid. This is a simple case of dural tail sign as you are seeing, and there's no widening of the porus acousticus like you saw in the prior case. So this is a simple CP angle meningioma. Okay, brightly enhancing CP angle meningioma. So again, you have one case of diffuse midline glioma over here, H3K27 mutation, which you get. This is expanding the pons. Okay, so obviously near the CP angle, you get a posterior cranial fossa like this. So this was a case of DMG. And this is, okay, wait. I am sorry, why is this video not working? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so this is a T1 image. A T1 image, you're seeing a T1 bright lesion like this. Okay, so this T1 bright lesion I've just shown you, this is not, I should have given you more sequences, but this is not showing this was showing mild restriction. This is T1 bright. Okay, this was not like following any typical epidermoid feature. This was not restricting that much. So we gave it as white epidermoid. And this case I saw in NIMHANS while I was training there, observing there. So this was a case of white epidermoid. So you can go back and read, because of excess fat, cholesterol, you get such a T1 bright picture, which is that of a white epidermoid. Okay, we got one similar case in KGMU as well. So this is just a quick recap. You can take a picture. The PGs who are watching, this is how you need to put your answer in the answer sheet so that it looks good. And while reporting CP angle tumor, you need to give the Coos classification also of how much the tumor is like impressing upon the CP angle and the brainstem. Okay, so this you can take a quick recap or a picture, or this is readily available on internet. You can take from there. So just to put it, complete my slide, I did that. CP angle tumors, a quick recap was done for you people. Okay. So again, the next subset is of spinal tumors. So spinal tumors are also very important when it comes to exam. So you know ependymoma, astrocytoma, everybody asks. So my cases are that only. This A and A, both are same diagnosis. You know that. Okay, so this you see the hemosiderin cap sign. Everybody knows the answer is ependymoma. This also cap sign, everybody knows conus medullaris, cauda equina region. This everybody knows, everybody has made the diagnosis, myxopapillary ependymoma. Yes. Okay, then this you know, plexiform neurofibromas you're getting. This is all dumbbell-shaped lesions infiltrating the neural foramina like this. So these are very extensive plexiform neurofibroma. This case I already showed you people, spinal tumor, frankly enhancing. This is hemangioblastoma. And then you get this tumor, which is extramedullary, intradural, arising from the dura. It is also giving a dural tail sign, which will be seen in the post-contrast scan. So sorry, I didn't put that. So this is a clear-cut case of meningioma. Okay, so I think I'm very clear because these are all exam going my department cases, which I got while working as a senior resident in KGMU. Okay, So again, I have another cases. So this here case E, you can see these hypo intense lesions over here. So these were all metastases which we got from a posterior cranial fossa tumor here, which is not shown in the picture. So these were all metastases. So you should look very carefully everything. Okay, even if you are reporting spine, do not report it as only degenerative. It has a lot of things. This another case where we have done SWI also. This is a peripheral hemosiderin rim, and this we got as a case of spinal cavernoma. Case G, case G was a case of spinal arachnoid cyst. Very easy. Sometimes mostly you get this in the thoracic region only. Okay. Case H, very, very important. This is a T1, this is T2, and this is a fat suppressed image. See, it is suppressing in fat suppressed images. So everybody knows the diagnosis. This is dermoid. Okay. So dermoid. Then this is fatty phylum terminal or phylum terminal lipoma. So never ever forget to see T1 images. T1 images are very, very important. So never ever forget the T1 images. Okay. So while reporting spine, T1 images have to be looked for because these are causes of low back pain as well. Just a good diagrammatic illustration, because I'm very fond of illustrations to be put in the exam, to be put in your notebooks, to be put in your like whatever, whenever you're preparing. Okay, so this is just a diagrammatic representation, not going into the very bit of it, but you can remember intradural, intramedullary, extradural, intramedullary. So IDEM and all are very importantly asked in the exam. So spinal tumor, all briefed, already shown in the slides, just a reiteration. Then another subset is the intraventricular tumor. You are asked in the exam, intraventricular tumors. So intraventricular tumors, okay, so case A, everybody knows T1 weighted image. Case A is a simple colloid cyst. Case B, you are getting a tumor focused on the lateral ventricle, septum pellucidum, very like homogeneous with some cystic spaces. Yes, it turned out it was associated with tuberous sclerosis. I'll give you a hint also. So yes, this was subependymal giant cell astrocytoma. Okay, so cortical tubers you are not seeing in this picture, but we got some related TSC abdominal manifestations as well. So yeah. Yeah, I know you must be like putting down in your chat boxes, but I have a lot to show you. So I'm not seeing the chat right now. Okay, so soap bubble appearance. Soap bubble appearance, everybody knows, arising from septum pellucidum. Okay, in the children. So this is central neurocytoma, central neurocytoma over here, and this occurs mostly in older children and associated with tuberous sclerosis complex. So this is SEGA. Sometimes you give subependymoma or subependymal giant cell astrocytoma, basically depending upon the heterogeneity. Subependymoma are more in the posterior cranial fossa near the fourth ventricle. Okay. This is a clear-cut case of xanthogranuloma of the choroid plexus. DWI is so bright. Okay. So these are all intraventricular tumors. Then yeah, this is again a video. This just to show you the hemicerebral atrophy picture, tram track calcification, port wine stain of the patient. We got this case in KGMU. Okay, so this is Sturge-Weber syndrome. Okay, and tram track. So you always remember the long list of hemicerebral atrophy cases: Dyke, Davidoff, Mason, Rasmussen's encephalitis, hemimegalencephaly, and Sturge-Weber. These are various differentials which you remember. Okay, so just a diagrammatic representation of intraventricular focal masses. Take a picture, put it in your notebooks, like how you are differentiating it into solid and cystic lesions. And this is a illustration taken from Instagram of TSC, and these are my notes which I made from Osborne, like what all you get in a case of TSC. Okay. So, intraventricular tumors, very important. Central neurocytomas, subependymal giant cell astrocytomas, intraventricular ependymomas also you get. Okay, xanthogranulomas of the choroid plexus. Okay, intraventricular arachnoid cyst and NCCs also you get as intraventricular masses. So there's a long list, but because of the time constraints, I am only showing you what is important in your exams. Okay. Another important, pineal region tumors. First, it is very important to identify the pineal gland on an MR. Okay, so you should know the pineal region anatomy, and then only you will find the pathology. So these are three different cases, A, B, and C. This A case was taken from NIMHANS. Okay, so it turned out to be, I'll tell you without much ado, it turned out to be the pineal tumor choriocarcinoma. It was a germ cell tumor of the pineal gland. See, such blooming you are getting, such T2 hemosiderin rim you are getting over here. The B case was taken from a EPOS article. Okay, so this is a case of pineocytoma, such intense enhancement you're getting. The C case is the blast calcifications, the peripheral calcifications which you're getting, and this is a case of pineoblastoma. So a very quick differentiation, this taken from radiology, Radiopedia, everybody. Exploded blast, exploded calcification you get in pineoblastoma, pineocytoma, and engulfed calcification you get in germinoma. Okay. And then these are the features. Pineoblastoma, you get this blast calcification with enhancement, and there's heterogeneous solid portion on T1 with a heterogeneous hemorrhage on T2. Whereas in pineocytoma, it is iso to hypointense, and it is less heterogeneous like that of pineoblastoma, and it is showing homogeneous enhancement. So this is pineocytoma. And then the third entity which I discussed was pineal choriocarcinoma, which was that case. Okay, so it is markedly heterogeneous with areas of both hypo and hyperintensity, reflecting the hemorrhage, fibrosis, or the heterogeneity of the tumor. And there are various heterogeneous intratumoral enhancement. So this is all, you can see phlovoids also. So this is pineal choriocarcinoma. So the region of pineal gland is very important to recognize first and then to make a diagnosis. Okay. This is a very good thing. You also, who are doing fetal medicine, they also see vein of Galen malformation asked as a short note in DNB, also in MD exams. Such a dilated vein of Galen, straight sinus, everything is dilated. The internal cerebral veins also. So yeah, this is vein of Galen malformation, which is of two types, mural VGAM and choroidal VGAMs. So this, you are asked the types of VGAMs, and vein of Galen malformation is very characteristic on MR, and also when you are seeing it on fetal scans. So the age of presentation is infants and neonates, and you are doing embolization for these people as a treatment. So vein of Galen malformation. Then again, a quick recap of the pineal region masses. I'm very fond of flowcharts and diagrammatic illustrations. So I've chosen these for you people so that you can put down in your exams. Okay, so this is how the pineal region masses are divided into solid and cystic lesions. Okay, so this you can take a screenshot or a picture and remember it for lifetime. And this, as I was telling you, the pineal region anatomy is very important. How are you locating the pineal gland? Okay, so just behind the quadrigeminal cistern, you're getting this pineal region and the pineal gland. So pineal region masses, a quick recap. I have already told everything just to summarize so that you can take a picture just to summarize everything. I have put it here. Okay. So, yeah, coming on to my last subset and a very favorite subset of mine, tumors we've already seen. We have seen CP angle, we have seen posterior cranial fossa tumors, we have seen parenchymal tumors, we have seen intraventricular tumors. But now, the basic thing and the last part of my talk is tumor simulators and tumor mimics. Okay, so yeah, this starry sky appearance we get. So every third case in my KGMU residency was of neurocystic sarcosis, and those who are watching me from KGMU, they also know that we get so much neurocystic sarcosis and tuberculoma. So yeah, this is vesicular colloidal stages of disseminated NCC you're getting here also in the muscle. So we are doing whole body MRI now to see the dissemination. Here you're getting such T2 hypointense lesions. Okay, so now you should know whether the granuloma is caseating, non-caseating, putting them in your report. So depending upon the T2 hypointensity, these are all caseating granulomas of TB, which are peripherally enhancing. You sometimes give a diagnosis of racemose NCC, but racemose NCC it is not, because NCC you get the cystic T2 bright appearance. Here it is T2 hypo. So this is a caseating granuloma. This is tuberculoma. Okay. You can do an empty sequence, you can see, but more reliable is of how it is appearing on T2. Okay. Then toxoplasmosis, again a case taken from KGMU only. This eccentric target sign, this alternate bands, you're getting hypo and hyper in the thalamic region, and eccentric target sign mimicking sometimes CNS lymphoma. This is toxoplasmosis in an immunocompromised patient. Okay. Then again, this is again a case of starry sky appearance over here of a PML, progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy, which you're getting. And the most common difference which is asked is whether it is respecting the subcortical U fibers, or whether it is affecting. So subcortical U fibers are affected in cases of PML, in cases of patients who are having decreased CD4 count. And this is just a diagrammatic illustration from one of my batchmates. You can subscribe the graphical radiology page on Instagram. Okay, and this here summarized all the findings and signs, the Milky Way sign, the barbel sign, the shrimp sign, which you get of PML. Okay, so I'm running short of time and I'm having some 2, 3 slides more. So I'll just go through it and then we'll take up questions if any. Okay, again, yeah, you know that this is tubercular abscess, which we are discussing. See, such DWI, hyperintense areas, some hemorrhage is also there, and it has all ruptured. It has gone into the ventricle, it has gone into the CP angle. Sorry for this thing. And this is another case where we have kept MRS over here, and you're getting such a good lipid lactate peak over here. So yeah, this was a case of tuberculoma and where the MRS helped and NA is increased. So this is not tumor. Okay. So yeah. So this is how we are differentiating tubercular abscess, fungal abscess, pyogenic abscess, depending upon the MRS. You're getting Trehalose peak, you're getting amino acid peak. So you should be very well versed of how the abscesses are looking on DWI, on ADC, on T2. So you need to differentiate on what kind of an abscess it is. So you can take the picture of this slide for that. Okay. So these are two cases I saw when I was in IMHANS, and it's a very good place where you see neuro only. So this was one case of neuromelioidosis, which is mostly a diagnosis of exclusion. Here you can see such ring enhancing lesions, such blotchy enhancement lesions along the perivascular spaces, which you are seeing. Okay, I just took a video like this, and this was a case of neuromelioidosis when the biopsy was done. And this is one unique entity which I saw in NIMHANS, and just I took a video from my phone. So this is the poor video quality. I'm sorry. So this was cerebral sparganosis. As you can see here, I'll show you. Yeah. At this place, yeah, see, these are all like serpentinous lesions, as you are seeing in this video. These lesions are because of the worm which is crawling inside the brain. And when you do a subsequent scan, this worm will migrate from this place to somewhere here. So subsequent scans are very important for diagnosis of cerebral sparganosis. And there's a very good article by AJNR. You can go back and read, because it is a new entity and a very few cases are reported in India. Another tumor mimic is neurosarcoidosis. You can just take a picture of this thing and you can see leptomeningeal enhancement. I have put neurosarcoidosis because I have a very good case following this slide where I made a diagnosis and it was proved in NIMHANS. Okay, so neurosarcoidosis, it is just leptomeningeal enhancement, these cases, and how you are treating neurosarcoidosis like this. Okay, so neurosarcoidosis, you should keep that in mind. Another demyelinating, these are my notes, how I learned about autoimmune demyelination cases. You can just go through or take a picture of these things, and there's a very good article. So you can go through that acquired demyelinating disease article on radiographics. Okay. So yeah, this is a case which I was talking about, and then I'll be concluding myself. So I know is if anybody is putting in the chat, because I'm seeing what you people are writing in your chat. Okay, anybody who is writing, anybody, DLGNT, yeah, somebody has written DLGNT, yeah, very nice. Yes, this is DLGNT. One more has written DLGNT. Dr. Shakib has written DLGNT, very nice. Yes, this is DLGNT. Uh, um we got this case in KGMU, and it was proven in EMHANCE. You are seeing so many cystic lesions over here. You are seeing this subpile enhancement over here. This is, you are seeing frank enhancement over here, and this was a 2-year-old child, and see such a frank leptomeningeal enhancement. And we gave the diagnosis of DLGNT, and it got proven in EMHANCE, and it turned out to be DLGNT. So DLGNT is a very good term, which, and very good case which you get, and you get such good lesions, leptomeningeal enhancement and surface subpile cysts, which are disseminated, and there is marked enhancement over the dura over here. Okay, so you can put a differential of neurosarcoidosis. Sometimes people were thinking whether it's ours, NCC, it's TB. No, if you're getting subpile cystic lesions, frank enhancement in a pediatric patient, please think of DLGNT, and please get the patient biopsied. Okay, it is very, very important to make a good diagnosis. So brain tumor mimics is a long list, everybody. And if I talk of neuroradiology, it will take me like weeks and weeks to explain only these mimics. So, but we have only 1 hour, and I have tried to cover the maximum of neuroradiology collection which I had with me in this short span of time of my training. So I guess I am like done with all my collection. And thank you so much, everybody. This is just an illustration you can take from Instagram. These are all Instagram pages. Okay. And thank you so much. I know I was a bit fast, but I had to show you everything which I had with me in this 1 hour. So thank you so much. Thank